They fear the name used anywhere else would lay claim to their heritage and territory. It's a hot issue for Greece and the rest of the world. This was a politically sensitive spot for the king to appear. But the folk seemed pleased to see him, all except the opposition's local member of parliament. He was outraged by the king's daring. Again, the church opened its doors, but there was no refuge from the crowds. Even here, this simple visit began to look like a political rally. The abbot of Florina is well known in Greece for his outspoken views. On this day, he declared Greek Macedonia under sovereign rule. In Athens, the government was getting nervous. And then the king made his most audacious move. He headed for the border. His plan was to show his family the most northern part of Greece. You look behind you now, sir. There's a convoy of about 50 to 100 cars following you. Presumably they'll follow you on to wherever you're going. You have created something in this area which you perhaps... Did you anticipate?
No, I didn't. I really didn't anticipate. I was taken totally by surprise by the...
But the journey was cut short. The government had ordered a roadblock. They viewed this excursion as a political step and not one made by a tourist. The king's supporters forced the road open, but their leader backed down.
I'm not getting involved in an argument with the government. If they don't want me to go, I'm not going.
Turning back was not easy. At the next village, a government official boarded the bus to explain that the king would be expelled if he didn't stick to a holiday agenda. The king was also required to state his recognition of the Greek Republic and advised not to visit another town where anti-royalists were threatening to riot. There was none of that here. Right up, don't hold back in any way whatsoever.
You can see in their eyes there how they feel. It was very touching. But please, you know, remember that there are a lot of people who wouldn't react like that, and I'm quite aware of that. I mean, this is not just the whole country. I mean, there are people who are opposed to it.
Whether the politicians liked it or not, the ex-king had some support. Here in the mountains of Greek Macedonia, they were sorry to see him go. In the capital Athens, opinions differed.
King for Greece, just history. And we can't go back.
The Greece don't need Constantinos.
It's marvelous. The Constantinos belong to Greece.
Most of the press was against him. The face from the past smiled back from their front pages. In Parliament, the government was trying to privatize a telephone company, a move that was proving unpopular. Their own members were voting against it. The telephone workers were on strike, and the last thing that they needed was a troublesome ex-monarch. Prime Minister Constantine had to take a stand. He declared that his government had no prior knowledge of the visit and had never agreed to it. Strong action would be taken if the ex-king violated their conditions. Back on board, the criticism was taken with a royal pinch of salt. Princess Alexia had learned to live with it. The pressure is rising. After this publicity that he's had, politicians are now turning around and saying really bad things about him and trying to stop him from going to certain places. Are you kind of bothered about it? Or do you just put it out of your mind?
I'm not going to let it bother me. I mean, there is no point, because there are going to be politicians that are against it, and a lot of them might not be. I have a feeling that a lot of them wouldn't really be, but they just feel they ought to be.
Others were attempting to try the king for treason. A naval officer was sacked for traveling with his old friend, King Constantine.
I'm very glad to be here, so I don't care about my job. I was already a commodore, I'm an admiral now. It's already finished with me, with that. It's okay.
You can't tell me that you're having a holiday.
Well, it's at least fun to be with the family back in Greece. And I hope to, as the days go by, that it will become more and more so a holiday.
There were holiday moments. The king found time to cruise the beach with his sons. This was where he spent his boyhood summers. They were wearing less here these days. There was talk of cousin Prince Charles joining the party, but he was floating elsewhere in the Aegean, steering clear of the politics. Athens in August, hot and bothered by the return of the Greek royal family. Their old home, Tatoi Palace, just north of Athens, was as close to the heat as the king dared get. All this land was once his. Most of it he's handed over to the state to settle a tax bill. Tatoi is a ghostly place. King Constantine's family were the last to live here. His ancestors are buried here. The last time the king stood at these graves, it was to mourn his mother, Queen Frederica. When she died in 1981, he was allowed to bury her beside his father, King Paul. It was the only other time he's been home. Living here again is just a dream, but death will allow him to come back. And where are you going to be buried?
I haven't yet chosen the place. I mean, I was looking just now, but I think when there's peace and quiet and not people around, I'll go and have a little selection, and then I'll put some stones down.
All the Greek kings and princes are buried here, including Prince Charles's grandfather. The palace is a sorry sight, sealed up like a tomb. It is inside just how they left it all those years ago. On the night of April the 21st, 1967, the young king was here with his pregnant wife and baby daughter when the military took over. The king lived by the dictators for 8 months before mounting a counter-coup. When it failed, he fled with his family, living in exile ever since. They ventured back in with torches to find clothes still hanging in closets, toys scattered in the nursery, rats nesting in one of the king's hats. The government had allowed him to ship out some of his valuable possessions, but there was still plenty to retrieve.
This is all the packing that we brought from all over the place that we wanted to take to England. And, well, we took a quarter of the things out and then they stopped us.
They stopped you?
Yeah, they're still here.
But you took them last time.
Oh, there's another one. And a knife of my father's, and my father sailing, and me as a baby.
When I left Greece in '67, when the dictatorship took over, I had to turn my back on everything and walk out. And that taught me a very great lesson in life, that material things are not that important. And of course, I love seeing my things again, but I can turn my back on it again and walk out.